All right, let me check my levels here and make sure that we're good. Welcome to the live cast here. Previously, I'd been doing kind of more scripted videos and then editing them together and put them up. And then this is the reaction stream to what the previous video, but I haven't been able to. Or actually, it's not even that I haven't been able to. I'll tell you, I don't. I want to do something different with it. It's the best way to say it, and I want to just bring the information like this in a live stream format until I'm able to accomplish doing something different. The previous edited videos I think are fine, but I've got a background in film and video production. I think I can do better. It's kind of the short of it, and so I want to do that again in a different capacity. And when that happens, then I'll bring it in that regard. But until then, I do want to continue talking about this information because it has been a couple of weeks since I have gone live or put up a produced video. And I don't want the material to get terribly cold. So we're talking, or this channel, or this series of videos on this channel is about doing in-home elderly care. And I have been speaking about the experience that I had with my grandmother, and the previous videos kind of go into a little bit about who she and my grandfather were, and go into some of the initial assessment stuff that you're going to want to look at if it's something that you're looking to do. I think this is it's a big topic. I don't really think that there's much coverage being done on it on the internet, or if there is, I haven't been able to come across it. YouTube searches and stuff, and you know how you can go down just different rabbit holes of things and sometimes never find exactly what you're looking for. So I haven't been able to find anything. I'm not saying it's not out there, just saying I haven't been able to find it. I'm going to go ahead and go to the slides and bring those up here. So there we go. So what we're going to do, my picture is kind of covering up a little bit of that last piece there. Let me fix that real quick. I'll just bring it up so you can see it. I think you can actually see the whole thing, but just to make it a little cleaner, we're looking at assessing for customer buy-in here in this video today. Yeah, so we've talked about if this is something you want to do for somebody, there's a series of things that you're going to want to go through. It is a very heavy lift. It's difficult to achieve. It's difficult to achieve successfully and at a high level, and then sustain it over whatever amount of time. And most of the time, if you're looking at doing this for an individual who needs it, an elderly individual, or somebody who just needs for an indeterminable amount of time care, I think a lot of times you're going to find that is to term, meaning until death. And that was the case with my grandmother. And so, it's very hard lift in that regard for the things that you've got to do, and then ultimately knowing where the individual is headed, where we're all headed, not specific to that individual, but where we're all headed. So let me go ahead and go to the slide here. This video, we want to talk about assessing for customer buy-in. So just giving a little bit of background and talking about what I mean when I say customer buy-in. We're talking about the individual that you are helping. They've got to want it, okay? They got to want it. And it needs to be a very organic wanting of the assistance. If you're trying to sell them on it, or manipulate, which that's a strong word, but if you're trying to persuade them heavily, right, you're most likely not looking at something that's going to be a good fit. Because again, it gets difficult, and you want the initial agreement to be as organic and full hearted as possible. Going into this type of situation trepidatiously is going to present some issues at some point. And like we've talked about so far in the video series, you already got your hands full with issues that just naturally present themselves when everything is already going as well as it could possibly be going. So why you would want to add an extra complication onto that is doesn't make sense. You definitely want to have a full buy-in from the customer, and frankly, when it's the customer's idea, that might even be the best. So to go through these bullet points, my grandfather died again in early 2011, and so Ruth was staying with a family member that was picking her up every night to sleep at her house and then dropping her off in the morning. And so she was in a routine where the her main first thing is before any of the medical issues and things have occurred, and I can't remember to what extent I went into this, but in other videos, but before her medical condition started to just completely consume her life, when my grandfather died, the main thing that she struggled with was loneliness. She was very lonely, and I think that that's common in elderly. And she struggled with the idea of being left alone or forgotten about. And specifically, these feelings would come to her in the evening. She used to tell me all the time, around 5 o'clock or so, she would say, "It feels like the world is closing in on me," which is a very heavy statement to make in any regard, in any position in life. But to feel like the world is closing in on you, it's quite the burden. And when someone's feeling that way, there's, as much as I would try to rationalize with her, there isn't a whole lot of rationalization that can happen. They just are experiencing what they're experiencing, and it is what it is. And you're trying to make the best of what they're explaining that they're going through, because frankly, we're not able to relate. What the person is going through. I don't know what it's like to be 90 years old, not even close to 90. Have no idea what that is like. And I could certainly try and picture myself in that regard, but to actually be in that experience, obviously, is something totally different. So she was going through a lot of loneliness and feeling like she was going to be left alone. So a family member said, "Okay, here's what we'll do for nights. I'll pick you up in the evening. You'll stay with us. And then in the mornings, we'll take you home, and you can be at home, and you can be in your normal routine of working in the kitchen, or, doing things around the house, whatever it is that you want to do." And it did work for a while. I mean, I've got 3 years listed up there. And to be fair to that family member, it was functional. It wasn't what Ruth preferred or would ultimately need, but it did provide us and buy us some time, provide us with a jumping off point of what we need to start looking at. Because even for all the experience that we had as a family working with elderly care, when it happens to you, it's something different. There was a series on HBO 20 years ago or so called 6 Feet Under. And the pilot episode, the series is about a family that runs a funeral home. And the pilot episode, the father, essentially the business owner and the one that had been that started the funeral home, dies. And so this family that has always dealt with funerals is now experiencing a funeral, and that's quite different than them providing funerals for other people. So similar thing, or I think that's an adequate comparison. So even though we had this experience, it was different for Ruth to actually be going through it. And she got to the point where she didn't want to do that anymore. She just wanted something more stable. I mean, getting picked up every evening and then dropped off every morning. And, like, honestly, how long can you really do that? I mean, 3 years is pretty commendable to even keep up that pattern for that long. That's reasonably commendable. So what was happening with me, or the second bullet point there, is I was saying during that season, I was living with my brother. We were actually both going through something, and I'd never lived with him before, but we needed each other on a brotherly level and ended up getting a place. And she would come and stay with us, and that had never been a thing before. Her and John, which I have mentioned before, they always were together, and you would never find one of them spending the night or being away from the other for more than just a handful of hours, someone being at work for the day. But she was journeying out of the house at that point. She would come and stay with us. She'd come and stay with us for weeks at a time. And it was great. This kind of goes back to one of the earlier points on the self-assessment or the initial assessment, which is assessing the condition of your relationship, and I really do attribute that season for me and her to just grow and start to separate just being a grandmother and a grandson. You really need to see each other on a human level, because all that stuff goes out the window. I mean, ultimately, and I'm sure I'll talk about more of this in detail when we get to that point, the level of care I was giving to Ruth was at such an intimate level, helping her in the bathroom and that kind of thing, that to keep up those like illusions of, well, this is my, and I mean, I was going to say, this is my grandmother. Yes, she's my grandmother. She's always been and always will be my grandmother. But to not just see her as a human that needed help, and to only see her through that lens of grandmother, grandson, it would not have worked. And I really attribute that time that we were able to spend together as helping off in that regard. So one of the things that was going on in my life at the time is I was in the middle of a transition. She was in a transition. I was in a transition. My transition was that I had signed up to go into the Peace Corps, and I would be leaving the country for 27 months, essentially, to go down to South America and do that entire experience. So I was working at the time. I was going to put in my notice and leave my position to go down there and do that. But it left me in a gap period where there would be, between when I left my work and when I was leaving, was about 5 months, something like that. And she was talking about she wanted to do something different to change up her situation. And I knew that my situation was changing. So when we initially had this conversation, it was me that brought it up to her. And I don't remember the exact words that I used because it was several years ago, but it was, essentially something to the effect of saying, hey, well, I could come and stay, and then I would be there with you, and I could assist you with shopping and things around the house. And, and then you would know that there's definitely going to be someone who is in the house, that you know and love and trust, that will be there. And then you won't feel preoccupied with needing to have someone around, or needing, to break up the monotony of what you've been experiencing the last couple of years, which is to literally every night have someone pick you up, and then literally every morning, not 5 days a week, not just on weekends, every single day, Christmas and Thanksgiving and all of that stuff included, to drop you off in the morning. And she loved it. And that's why I've got the next note there, because one of the things I learned about that experience is that when you find somebody that is up against, they have their back against the wall, and they're up against immense stress and pressure, and you offer them a solution, they don't say thank you, they say thank God. And that was her response. I said, well, Granny, I think I should come and live with you. And she said, oh, thank God. I think that would be wonderful. I think that'd be great. I think that would, and she was elated at the entire idea. And that's what I mean when I say you want to have a wholehearted response and reaction to that. Because if the conversation was the conversation went down, and she's like, I don't know, I don't know if that would work. I don't know. And now I'm in a situation where I'm either trying to talk her into it, or I'm just walking away from it, and she's still stuck with her original problem, you know. So it would have played out one of those two ways, and luckily we didn't have to go down that road because that never came into play. That never happened. So I did. I ended up living with her for about 5 months before I went into Peace Corps, and it was great because she was still mobile. She was able to get around. Her vision hadn't left her. She was able to see. Her hearing was still in a reasonable state, not great, but in a reasonable state. And I was able to do just some very straightforward and simple things to assist her, and kind of start structuring together for whoever was going to come behind me, or whatever the plan was going to be for her life after I left to go to South America. And just like small stuff. So, well, some small, some maybe not so small. I'll tell you one that is not so small. The first thing I did when I walked in that house, as I said, we're calling Time Warner because you're getting freaking internet. Like, you're dealing with elderly people. She never knew how to use a computer or anything. Same thing with my grandfather. Like, they never, the internet was this big. I don't know what's up with all those computers. It was like that kind of thing. So and we all know, and I mean, I'm somewhat older now. Definitely not a kid, but there's no one that's, I don't even know where to put the age, younger than 50, that doesn't completely build their entire professional career off of their ability to use devices in some regard or fashion, and and have those devices connected to the internet, or whatever kind of connection is needed. Even if you're just doing emails all day, you don't actually need to connect to applications like websites, or a I'm trying to say like a business specific application that your business actually uses. It's imperative. It's the new utility, right? I mean, she might as well not have plumbing, to not have internet. It's almost at that level these days. So like doing that, like getting the house set up with Wi-Fi. Now, anytime anyone comes over there, number one, it's automatically more appealing. Nothing is as difficult. It's a pretty strong way to phrase that, but just saying. And I don't know if you've experienced this, but because it's almost not a thing anymore. And again, you probably find it with the elderly or something. But to like go over to someone's place and they don't have internet, bro. You don't have internet. Like, what are you talking about? You don't have internet. And so like to get someone to come over and stay with her, that's one of the things we wanted to encourage people. Like, come over. Yeah, of course, just kick it. Just sit in the chair, kick it on your iPad. That's all you got to do. You can hang out. You could do work, whatever. We just want somebody over here, and that's a big piece in that cog, is to have the house set up with internet. So did that. I'm trying to remember what else I did. I like rewired some of the plugs. The plugs in her kitchen were so bad that you couldn't even plug something in. You would literally plug something in and it would fall right out. Like the tension between the plug and the actual plug that you're plugging in and the wall, the receptacle, had completely faded. Like you couldn't even. It would do like that limp thing. Like if you, let me do it with my hand. You plug something in and like it automatically goes limp, like right that. And so like I took all of those, and she only had like 2 plugs in her kitchen. I took that, I added more. I put a power strip in there, like just these little modifications and things that were going to be necessary if you wanted to either have her in the place long term, or encourage somebody to come over and assist. So yeah, I stayed with her for 5 months. And then as I was leaving, my younger sister, who was also close with her, and actually my younger sister had already started a lot of this lift during when my grandfather died, because when he actually went into the hospital at first, she wanted someone. She was very demanding. We loved her. Ruth wanted somebody to stay with John, around the clock in the hospital, which we did. And she wanted somebody to come and stay with her in the evenings. And that person that went and stayed with her was my younger sister. So my younger sister, when I was leaving, she said she would come and stay with her, and she ended up staying with her the whole time I was gone. The whole 2.5 year period that I was in South America, she ended up coming and staying with her. And the same thing, she had the same Ruth, that is, had the same mentality towards me that she had towards my younger sister by saying, yes, like absolutely, I would love that. I think that you'd be a great fit. So, um, this is something that you're going to want to assess without question. If you are up against disagreement and the person's unsure and they don't know, yeah, I think that it would be healthy to give it not a season, but like a moment to breathe and just say, okay, well, let's speak again on it in a week, after you've had time to think about this and process it. But after that, if they're still unsure, I don't think that in most cases it's going to be a good fit. You're probably going to set yourself up or set the customer up for something that's going to be just not to the standard of what either of you are looking for. And the other thing about getting that agreement too is that there's a security with knowing that you're going to be able to continue to live your lifestyle the way that you want it. So maybe the customer's on the fence and they say, they give you a reluctant yes. Okay, well, we'll try it and we'll see. And then you get over there and they've got all sorts of rules for you and all sorts of, you left a dish in the sink. What's up with that? And or it could be anything. I'm just using that as an example. You've got to avoid those situations. And heck, if the conversation comes up again, then you can reassess it again at that point. Maybe they're on the fence. They don't know. Okay, great. No worries. Just if you change your mind, let me know, and we'll look at it again. And maybe 6 months later, you do get that phone call, and they want to look at it again. But you're going to want to absolutely make sure that they're bought in and that they're on the same page with you. Because, again, it's already difficult enough. You don't want to make it worse on yourself or the customer. All right, so let me see here. Do I have my question slide? All right, so again, Mario at the Alpha Italian. Give me your name and location. If you have any questions about doing in-home elderly care, I would love to look at them with you and help you work through the process, because that's another thing. All of these situations are going to be pretty individually specific based off of who you are, who the customer is, what their condition is, what the living situation is. There's a lot of variables in these situations. All right. Thank you so much. I will see you next time. Goodbye.